Pace, I think this is a good example of somebody who, very quickly and very easily got caught up in the North American betting hype, and he had access, right? He had access to funds through, Otani.
That's one way of saying it.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't have that kind of money.
No, he certainly doesn't.
If he does, sign me up for being an interpreter. I'll go learn a language for that kind of money.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at InPlay Live. If you want to see what it's all about on the inside, we've got that promo code for you, Behind the Lines, all caps. All right, on today's show, gambling disorders on the rise in North America. Surprise, surprise. A guilty plea from Shohei Otani's interpreter, a little book shakeup with BetRegal becoming North Star, at least on the north side of the border. And we'll talk a little bit about what FanDuel's got going on, looking to enter the streaming landscape. And we'll talk a little bit about how that might work. All right. I'm your host, as always, Shane Mercer, that guy over there, Andrew Pace, the founder of the most sophisticated sports betting community on planet Earth. That is InPlay Live. And again, one more time, I'll remind you all about that promo code Behind the Lines, all caps. Pace, how you doing, my man?
Never better, Shane.
Good to hear. Good to hear. We're starting the show off on a bit of a serious note, but I think it's really important that we talk about these things. I think that this is what makes this podcast very different from other sports betting podcasts, as we're not afraid to talk about the dark side of this business that we engage in. And, it can be pretty serious, and the consequences can be pretty dire when not approached in a responsible way. So Forbes out with an article this past week and highlighting the rise of gambling disorders in North America. And I'll just sort of riff off some of the stats here. But the National Council on Problem Gambling, and this is specifically in America, but I think that it can very easily be applied to all of North America and on the north side of the border as well here in Canada. But the National Council on Problem Gambling estimates that approximately 2.5 million adults in the US are severely addicted to gambling, and another 4 to 6 million people have mild to moderate gambling problems. So that's almost 10 million people that have some kind of gambling issue in North America, or at least in America, according to this study. But the American Psychiatric Association and the American Medical Association would recognize pathological or compulsive gambling as a diagnosable mental disorder. It's characterized by preoccupation with wagers, not being able to cut down or stop, repeatedly going beyond one's means, borrowing money to finance the habit, chasing losses. A lot of these things we've talked about here on this show before. And this can have a major impact on someone's physical health, their mental health. And in addition to obviously the big financial consequences that come from it, it can also, lead to serious mental health disorders, and even suicide affects young adults. So big sort of expose here, Pace, in Forbes, focusing on this issue. And, I wanted to talk about it because over the past couple of weeks, we talked a little bit about my success a couple of shows ago. We had Adam Bjorn on, a guy who has made an entire life out of being successful in this business. And if you guys haven't heard that episode or listened to that episode, I certainly encourage you to go back and have a listen. But Pace, with the rise of sports betting in North America, the frequency of the ads, the use of celebrities, all of these kinds of tactics that the sportsbooks are using that we've covered, widely here on the show. It's all, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, especially if you're just an average person out there. And I think maybe that's what we're seeing. But what do you think when you see an article like this?
I mean, I'm not surprised. And I think like the last thing I would want to do on this show is like start talking about politics. But, there's record debt out there, especially across North America. And this is a new revenue stream, obviously, that was brought into a lot of these states and provinces, right? So then you have this whole discussion of, the catering to losing players. And then when you cater to losing players and you don't have winning players, guess what the product of that is going to become? Like, you're going to have a bunch of people chasing losses and chasing a big win, a lottery type payout that the sports books just profit off of over the long term. And if you actually think about I guess like other things across our history, so like a really good example would be like smoking cigarettes, and like the history of cigarettes, where like the ads in like the what's the TV show with John Hamm?
Mad Men.
Mad
Yeah.
Men. Yeah. Like the ads during that time frame, like essentially like everyone's smoking in their offices. It would be crazy not to smoke because you're basically being told that it's healthy at those times, right? Like you could just say and do whatever you wanted, like total wild, wild west approach to advertising and marketing, right? And then, you fast forward to say like, the 90s. And I remember like coming up in elementary school and like we learned about, there was like people that came in to tell us before we got to high school about how bad smoking is for you, And I remember like being afraid to go to high school because I didn't want to be like I was afraid to be offered a cigarette. Like it was so, as a kid, it was like so ingrained in my mind that you do not want to do this thing and how bad it is for you. That for me, at least, it was pretty easy, to pass on going down that avenue. But like, just take that sort of, I know that was like a 40-year window that I just referenced right there, 40 or 50-year window. You fast forward to today, and I know obviously people smoke cigarettes, but it is far less, quote, cool than it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to be smoking today than it was then. You could put a similar lens on the whole gambling thing, right? It's this cool thing that everyone's doing, and it's so easy to win. And then fast forward a few years later, and here we are with, this article that's come out representing that, shocker. Hey, some people have some gambling problems, and the legalization of sports betting has put those problems like really under the spotlight or magnified them to the point that, like you said, like you went right to suicide there in what you brought up. So, it shows you that it's more than just the simple act of saying yes or no, because any smoker will tell you, hey, I'd love to quit, right? I can't. It's too hard. It's too challenging. Like the nicotine's one of the most, if not the most addictive substance in the world. You can't just drop it. It's like us right now saying, hey, stop breathing. It's part of their day-to-day necessity. So can people quit? Yeah, of course they can quit smoking. Tons of people have, but it isn't easy. And even once you do quit, it doesn't mean that you don't think about just like, holy fuck, like it would be insane to have a puff right now, right? And this is coming from a guy that I've actually never smoked anything in my life, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy being in BC and saying that.
Never smoked anything? Like never even tried anything?
No.
Wow.
No.
All right. Well, learning something about pace here, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, this is coming from, like, I guess I understand that I have empathy for, like, I can't actually put myself in that position. So from a gambling standpoint, think about it like it's nicotine, right? A lot of these people that are in a position like this, it is an unhealthy relationship, but one that they can't easily put aside. And then they flick on their TV and it's in their face. And, maybe they self-excluded at their favorite sports book, right? And then they find out they got a free $1,000 at the next one. And I mean, it's no secret here. I can definitely tell you in the unregulated space that I get advertising for sports books that I've never signed up for. All the time, like all the time. So lists are shared, information shared. Maybe it's sold, but yeah, we're being inundated left, right, and center. And to ask for protection at the government level is something that we've obviously explored to an extent with the whole, you're limiting winning players, and this is what the sports books are doing, and these are the practices. And we've seen some measures taken. You can't use the term free bet, and celebrity endorsements are banned in Ontario, and things like that. But to think that the government that is reliant upon this new income stream is going to be really able to make massive change now that it has arrived is probably a little bit naive. So that puts the onus back on you. You have to be the person that's making the smart, responsible decisions for your future, whether you are a sports bettor who's looking to make money or go down a journey of being profitable with it, or someone that just needs to completely quit entirely. You've got to take responsibility and make that drastic change. And one of the biggest ways to not gamble on sports is to not be in environments that promote it. So, it might mean not watching sports, not you might be like, well, I have to watch the NBA finals.
Well, this is the thing now, though, Pace. It's like you can't not watch sports and not have it in your face.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking cutting the cables, everything.
Right? Like I got to give up my sports passions, because I just can't handle the ads in my face. That's a tough thing for a lot of sports fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the ice in the Canucks rink. They're in the playoffs right now. Betway, it's sitting on the ice there. And it's funny because they say, oh, Play Now is the only licensed and safe place to play in British Columbia. Well, meanwhile, you, in theory, have an offshore book on the ice in front of you if you were to just go to a Canucks game and be like, oh, I want to enjoy it. And then, all of a sudden, just reading that word, that could be the trigger where you go, oh, I wonder if they have a bonus because I'll take the free bonus and then I'm not actually gambling because it's not this, that, or the other. And before you know it, you're back in the infrastructure. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing is like, it's no surprise in any way, shape, or form. And I think to an extent, various states and government regulators that are involved in this knew what they were getting into. But the counter argument to this is going to be that, $400 billion was illegally wagered in 2017 in the United States. So, does that mean, X amount of heroin was consumed illegally in the United States this year? So should we legalize it based on that rationale? Well, they've done that in Vancouver.
I was just going to say, you guys are experimenting with that right now. And it's, I got to say, just as an observer from afar, I don't think it's going so well.
Yeah, no, I can tell you firsthand, it's not going well at all. But it's interesting because we're planning the In Play Live Pro event, and it's an ongoing thing now. There's new planning steps being taken every day, every week right now. And it's funny because they're like, we're booking the field for softball and they'll say like, we are confirming that there will not be alcohol. And I'm like, you can inject fentanyl in our parks and you're concerned about whether or not we're going to have a drink in the park. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess what I'm saying is using that rationale as, it's happening anyways, so then let's just legalize it. Where is the line on that being valid? So when it comes to sports betting and it happening anyways, and then profiting off of the losses of it, instead of like, a company in Curacao or in the UK profiting from it, and their governments benefiting from that operation versus ours. I mean, yeah, there's a debate there and there's a discussion to be had. And at the end of the day, for like selfishly speaking, I do want sports betting to be out there and to be present. And I think our whole position is helping people do that more effectively. But like you said, hey, we're not afraid to have these conversations. So, just getting it all out there and making sure people do have that awareness. So like, if you are someone who's new to sports betting or you're a losing bettor that's now trying to win, don't be the person that doesn't recognize that this is the environment and industry that we're in. Don't be that person. Like, be the person that knows and is aware of it, so that if it is happening to you, you can go, oh, fuck, this is not for me, before it gets to these really dark levels.
Well, that's exactly it, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we're talking about it here because a big part of this is knowing yourself and understanding that for this is I'm really now speaking to a lot of the people that are already in Play Live and in our community. Don't forget that this is a dangerous space, and you need to approach it with a seriousness that it requires because the consequences of you know sort of getting caught up in all the fun of it, and it is a ton of fun. We have a lot of fun at In Play Live, but getting caught up in that, it can become easy to lose sight of the fact that this is a serious business, and you need to treat it in a very serious way. And it's easy to sort of forget about that and kind of get lost up in or caught up in the moments of big wins or big moments in sports and sort of enjoying that with the group and the community. And all of that is awesome, but we're sort of entering a time of year where things, kind of, get a little bit slower in terms of the amount of wagers maybe we're placing. There's maybe, it can sort of be easy to kind of maybe start betting on things you didn't bet on before. Maybe
Yes.
betting on things that aren't proven in your tracker, and it can be very easy to sort of get caught up in all of that at this time of year, especially.
Well, it's a good point that you bring up there, Shane, because Jesse Learmont, who we had on the podcast, I was actually on his podcast as well, and I think it's a great episode because it's called the Betting Startups Podcast, and if you guys aren't following that show, I would recommend that you do so. But I was hosted on that show, and Jesse's got great insight from the standpoint of not being a winning bettor himself, which he talked about on that episode, but being such a prominent person that has worked for Pinnacle and has now become the CEO of a new betting company that hopefully we'll get to touch on soon with him.
That'd be great
on the show, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, I would love to have him back.
Yeah. But basically, knowing the lens of being a business in this industry largely being based off of customer loss, and if you are starting something in this industry, that you are likely to an extent dependent upon making money off of the sports books winning money. So again, based on people losing. He really has seen, the entrepreneurs that are on that side of things, right? And one of the biggest things that he said on the episode that really resonated with me was there's the sports betting side of things, but that ultimately is a hook to get you onto the casino.
Right.
And now back to sort of my lens at In Play Live and what I have seen. I have seen some of our biggest and best success stories go belly up, kind of with what you were touching on, Shane. Mm-hmm. So you're touching on a time of year where perhaps you as a sports bettor who's had it ingrained into your life as something that you're doing throughout a big chunk of the day or a big chunk of the week, have that fall off to not quite the same extent. And then you sitting there going, what am I going to do with my time? And you start playing on different sports or trying different strategies that create loss. Well, the other one is going to the freaking casino. And you go, you almost carry over this I'm a successful sports bettor into the casino. Like, I'm going to go win now. Right. And one of the biggest draws of gambling, whether it's sports betting or otherwise, is that it is common to get some of those wins. It's not uncommon to be up. I'm up, I'm this, I'm that. Right. So you might get a little bit of that at the blackjack table or roulette table or whatever the case and think that it's just going to repeat itself. And that's where like statistics have to be the backbone of your decision making. So like if I'm going to spin a roulette wheel, unless I've found a wheel that has either a really good dealer there that's spinning it, that knows exactly what he's doing on your team, or you have some sort of warped part of the table that's produced. It's a thing, Shane. It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing. You have a bit of a warped table that's producing certain numbers. So there's been, roulette guys that have studied wheels where they go in and out and get as much data on that wheel as they possibly can. And then they go in and kick the shit out of that table before the wheel gets changed over. That's happened, right? So unless you have some sort of edge like that, you are statistically placing wagers that the more volume you apply to them, the more money you're going to lose. And I guess what I'm getting at is they just simply don't carry over. So don't be the person that has done well with in play live that then turns the corner and becomes a gambler. It just doesn't. It's never going to work in your favor.
No, it really isn't. And I think I touched on it in the episode where we sort of talked about my story a couple of weeks ago. But, I went through a process of that where I took a strategy at In Play Live and thought I could apply it in other leagues around the world. And it didn't work out, and there's a reason that it doesn't work out.
But I like that you did that.
Well, I guess it was something where, again, maybe trying to fill that time, where it was sort of at that sort of part of the season and like, oh, now what? Oh, well, I can do it over here, and it's, not that it wasn't worth trying. And I did get off of it once I saw it wasn't working, but it was just that mindset of, oh, I got to do something else now, to sort of get to fill that time. For anybody out there that is going through that and trying to figure out how to fill the time, I got a much, much better way to go about it. It's just focus on the premium ops. Pace will tell you which ones those are, if you're in the Play Live community, and spend the rest of the time with the people you love. That's probably my best advice there. Spend that time with people in your life that have allowed you to spend the other part of the season that's sort of behind us now so engrossed in this thing. That would be my biggest advice. All right, let's move on a little bit. And we're still sort of staying with the topic, but a little bit lighter here and maybe sort of more into the celebrity realm of things. But, celebrities get caught up in this whole gambling thing as well. And we all know, if you're big into sports, the Shohei Otani story by this point. Well, his interpreter, and I'm going to butcher his name here. Hopefully I don't, but Ipe Mizuhara, his interpreter has agreed to plead guilty. He's pleading guilty to 1 count of bank fraud and 1 count of subscribing to a false tax return. He's accused of stealing $17 million from Otani. This guy's facing up to 33 years in prison for those charges he's pleading guilty to. He bet $142 million over the course of his betting history there. His winnings totaled $142 million, but his losses were $183 million. So net loss $41 million. He didn't wager on baseball. For anyone out there that's wondering, was he betting on Otani? No, he wasn't. He wasn't betting baseball at all. But, Pace, I think this is a good example of somebody who, very quickly and very easily got caught up in the North American betting hype. And he had access, right? He had access to funds through, Otani.
That's one way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have that kind of money.
No, he certainly doesn't.
If he does, sign me up for being an interpreter. I'll go learn a language for that kind of money. Yeah, I mean, honestly though, so this obviously ties in with the Jonte Porter stuff.
Yeah, Jonte Porter.
So I don't know if you've heard about this, Shane, but there's discussion now for sportsbooks only offering overs on player props. Have you heard about this?
Really?
Yeah.
Only overs. You can't bet the under. I have not heard about this.
Okay, so we bring up Roga and sportsbooks like merging. And, we talk about responsible gaming tools where we're getting logged out, which only affects winners, really. Sportsbooks look at angles in these situations, and the net result is how can it benefit us? So think about having a line that you no longer need to balance for profitability. So let's just say that the production from Steph Curry is approximately 26.5 points per game. Oftentimes with player props, overs tend to be the more exciting, more fun side to wager on.
Yeah, not a lot of people bet unders on props, yeah.
Well, there might be a line at 27.5 for him then. So there's a VIG, obviously, and then on top of the VIG, they've increased it a point above his average. And then obviously where he's playing, who's guarding him, trends in the last few games, like all that stuff can factor in, right? Like if he's dropped 35 3 or 4 games in a row, that total might, even though the average was 26.5, that total might be closer to 30, right? So there's a whole series of factors that go into setting a line, but one of the biggest factors is where those lines makers see profitability from the standpoint of taking action that's going to be balanced. And as a bookmaker, when money comes in, especially if it's significant money and it's sharp money, which probably now at this point, yes, there's tons of sharp money on player props, but it's hard to get consistent and long-term money in on player props. So you're going to look towards main markets. But as that big heavy action comes in that is viewed as sharp, as a bookmaker, you have the option to close the line and bring it back at a new number, adjust the line, or say bring it on and keep the line. And when you say bring it on, the reason why I say that is because if you have 90% of all of your money on one side of a line and you don't move that line, if the other side of it hits, you're getting 10-1 on a wager that's theoretically a coin flip or close to a coin flip. So there's some bookmakers where they go, I know my exposure on this side of this line is really going to hurt, but the upside is worth it. And statistically speaking, over time, even though the sharp money is over there, the odds I'm getting on the other side are worth essentially keeping. So now imagine where it's illegal to have an under because of guys like, let's say, Otani being involved with this interpreter. It sounds like he was just a terrible gambler, but then obviously Porter being someone who is he's actually involved in rigging player props and things like that. That means that this 26.5 average that I'm referencing, they can set the line at 35.5 at -110 and just basically trap people into cheering for their players with full control over negative expected value beyond reason. So like, just think about that. Like,
Wow.
As opposed to having it like someone punished, they sign what they need to sign, they have their contracts, and then having him punished, banished, whatever, where you go, you just can't do this stuff, guys. It's not worth it. Instead, it's like the sportsbooks upside for this stuff happening is now potentially colossally massive. Like, it's just so much so, Shane, that we would be crazy to bet on a player prop ever.
Yeah, well,
because
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, why would you go and bet on a player prop then if you know that you can only bet the over and the number's higher than it should be, right? You would just stay away. But I get it, right? There are a lot of people out there that want to bet the prop and they just want to cheer for their players, right? And I guess that's who the sports books would be targeting in those cases.
And the people will still be betting on player props.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they'll be betting on the props. They'll probably be same game parlaying those props with other overs on other players that they like.
Yeah, but the revenue from that side of the business, which is not high at all. Not the revenue, the profitability is not high on that side of things at all for sportsbooks at all.
Yeah,
and it would increase significantly.
Yeah. Like prop markets are sort of, something that a lot of people out there, especially a lot of pregame bettors, have been taking advantage of over the last couple of years. They've been a heavy focus in a lot of different sports, and still is. So yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where things go there. On the sportsbooks side of things, we've got a bit of a change up, something that is affecting a lot of the people in Canada. BetRegal. It was. I don't know if this is still going to be the case, probably not, but it has been the official sports betting partner of the CFL. It's no longer taking bets in Canada and will instead become a North Star Bets. Pace, I never bet on BetRegal. I don't think it was part of the Ontario regulated markets. So, and I could be wrong on that, but I don't think so. I know North Star Bets is. But I'm assuming that you used BetRegal at some point in your sports betting career. What do you think of this change?
It's not a big deal for anyone. If you guys really liked BetRegal and their lines are readily available via offshore betting. So I'll just run through a little list for any of our viewers. And I will not get all of them, but those same lines are at WagerWeb, Heritage Sports, Jazz Sports, ABC Islands, UWager, and many more. So you can go get those lines. They're great. I use them all the time. A lot of local bookies actually use that same system. But I do find it more interesting, like the economics or the business side of it, like to be one of the major sponsors of the CFL, and then to basically, I don't know if fold is the right term, but to move over to another platform is interesting. Now, whenever this kind of stuff happens, it's always a little bit of a curiosity thing. Like, okay, I was limited at BetRegal and I don't have a North Star Bets account. Am I going to be limited at North Star Bets? I was limited at North Star Bets already. My BetRegal is moved over there, but I was a good customer. I was not limited at BetRegal. Will I now be still limited at North Star Bets? And then I've been limited at both. Will somehow this transition give me another crack? So those are always the questions that are of interest to me. I just updated my details over at North Star Bets. And I don't mind if somehow this causes adversity for my personal accounts, but I was limited at BetRegal. I was not limited at North Star Bets, but I had an account, and I got an email saying the balance, if there are any balances, like they'll be transferred and combined into one. And, since I already had an account, so we will see if the limitations cross over for me. I don't think they will, but we shall find out. And for those of you that don't know, North Star Bets is a Kambi sportsbook. So that is their odds provider. They do have an app. I can't speak to whether or not it's a site that is reputable, but as a general statement, Kambi, with some effort, they do pay you out. I have a really bad Kambi story, but that was from a mistake that I made. So yeah, always exciting when there's some sort of book change to see what opportunities that will give us.
Yeah. And for anyone in Ontario, North Star Bets is in Ontario. It's part of the regulated market. So you can trust it from that point of view that, if you bet something there, like Pace was saying too, like, Kambi pays out a lot of their lines that may be off or something like that. And in Ontario, it is part of the regulated market. So you won't have too many issues. You'll probably still get limited though pretty quickly. If you're winning bets and you were limited on BetRegal, you might get new life. I don't know how long that new life will live for you.
Yeah.
Good chance you'll get limited pretty quickly there too. But hey, that means you're winning, which is what it's all about. All right, another book doing something interesting, and this one is a bit bigger. It's FanDuel, and they're launching Fast TV. So FanDuel wants to be a streamer. It's launched this thing called Fast Channel. It's free, so it comes with ads. It will air live sports, and it'll also include some interview shows and some analysis shows. Pace, maybe they'll want us to be on Fast Channel one day. They might approach us. There's always a chance, I suppose. But you're going to have people affiliated with FanDuel telling you what to bet on, which is always problematic. I would take any of that with a grain of salt. But they're going to be broadcasting horse racing, poker, Korean soccer, professional darts. They'll have basketball from China, Germany, Turkey. You'll be able to find this on Roku and Pluto TV and FanDuel TV Plus. So we got a sports book and many sports books, Pace, and anybody out there who has quite a few sports books will know this by now, that you can watch a lot of the games on these sports books. A lot of different sports books are broadcasting different games and events from around the world pretty regularly. It's the kind of thing where if it's something overseas that you would never be broadcast in your home state or province, then there's a chance you might be able to go watch it on a sports book somewhere. But this is a little bit more, into the streaming space. And it's something I don't think we've really kind of seen from a lot of sports books yet.
Yeah. So have they touched on latency, Shane?
No.
I mean, other than the name.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, I didn't see any sort of comments around latency or anything like that.
So, I mean, like, I guess when I saw this right away, like obviously we've talked about some of the dark sides of gambling on this episode. Right away, I'm excited because I'm like, oh my god, Fast TV, good live streams, good feeds, yes,
right, yeah,
air whatever the fuck you want, I'm in. but the fact that it's Pluto, Roku, Zumo, that to me implies like extreme latency. So I really don't know where they're going with this. I'm here for it though, is I guess all I can really say. The more companies that get involved in this whole streaming space and the more competitive it gets, hopefully leads to these faster feeds. And I know that we bring it up. YouTube TV, they took over the NFL. People complained like freaking crazy, and then they did improve their latency, and offered a bit of a better product. So and the name Fast TV, like, I mean, hopefully that means that they're broadcasting things live. They did say in the article, Shane, that it is the actual video platform of the what's going on at the event, which usually means it's pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. So, I would imagine that it'll be some, there'll be some latency, but will it be like, the NBA on TNT right now? I hope not. That's pretty bad for anybody out there who's been watching it or try to sort of keep up with the books. But I imagine that it'll be something reasonable. When I see this, I think to myself, is FanDuel having an issue with profitability? Right? Because we've sort of talked about this a little bit, in the past. We talked about DraftKings, I think specifically, and its, path to profitability, not necessarily looking as certain as it once was. And even with the rise of sports betting and sort of, the dark side of things and people losing a lot of money, these sports books are still having a challenging time out there. And to me, this is like, FanDuel's wanting to enter the streaming space. It's going to run something for free, right? So you can go and watch these other sports that you probably wouldn't be betting on, if you're in North America. These are things that I don't know how much Korean soccer you're betting on, right? If you're in a North American sports fan, maybe, but probably unlikely. But if you can watch it, maybe you will bet on it. Right. And this might be a way to get, for FanDuel to get people betting on things they might normally not bet on. And the other side of it is, hey, they're going to be running ads on this. So now you might bet on, Turkish basketball. Now you might be watching Turkish basketball because it's available to you and it'll encourage you to bet more. But at the same time, too, they're going to be able to deliver ads to you, and they're going to be able to capitalize on some ad revenue in the process as well. To me, it sort of screams like we need to find other paths to profitability.
Yeah, and you just never know what comes of it, right? Like if you do have this free platform when other sports-related streaming services are charging, that could lead to a user base that could be capitalized on separately of the sports book. And despite the fact that it's encouraging betting separately of the sports book. So to give you guys some information, Flutter Entertainment is the publicly traded stock that owns FanDuel. So you can't directly buy FanDuel. But we're not comparing apples to apples here. FanDuel's market cap, which essentially is their current valuation based on market activity in the stock market, is 28.75 billion USD. DraftKings is 20.49. Now, DraftKings is, again, it's not apples to apples because Flutter is involved in more than just the sports book itself. But in both cases, the PE ratio when you search is a dash, which just means that it's negative, and that's profit to earnings. So when you talk about like, are they profitable and are they looking for new ways to make money? Well, I think profitability for these major regulated sports books is a bit of a challenge, right? Meanwhile, if you look up a company like, say, MGM Resorts or Caesars, these are companies that obviously, they have a whole series of, obviously their hotels and all those types of things. They have positive price to earnings ratios. They've been established for much longer. Sports betting is a part of their enterprise, but MGM has been taking sports bets over the counter for decades. So there is a little bit more of an element in those sports books of knowing how to run profitable businesses and having shareholders that they've had to answer to for decades. So market cap for MGM Resorts International is actually less than FanDuel and DraftKings, despite the fact that they have, their hotels and everything that they offer. 12.86 billion market cap, but price to earnings ratio of 15.75. So a profitable company, right? So, there might be some envy from a company like MGM looking at the overall market position of a company like FanDuel, where they go, oh, FanDuel has a bigger handle than we have. There might be a little bit of envy there, but there's a huge difference between running a profitable business and running a business that people love to use, that has a lot of users, that is not making money. And yeah, certainly I think FanDuel falls into that category.
Yeah, totally falls into that category. Something like MGM or Caesars, right? Sports betting is something that, they probably feel, they're compelled to offer. They've been offering it already for a long time, but it also helps bring you into their ecosystem, right? Now they'll, sell you deals on hotels when you go to Vegas, right? And, they'll maybe try to push you towards their casinos, like you kind of mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of benefit for them being in the sports betting realm, that may not have anything to do with trying to turn a profit off of sports itself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, Pace, we covered a lot of ground today. A lot of interesting topics there, and we'll continue to sort of keep our ears to the ground and keeping an eye on all things sports betting related. And there's no topic we won't talk about or cover here on the show. But Pace, I think that just about does it for this week. Anything you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Yeah, absolutely. So something for people that potentially have been with us in the past that still follow our podcast, or people that have found our podcast and are interested in our community. We do have a free Discord section inside that you can join, and we're not giving out free picks and doing all that stuff that I think a lot of this industry is really, really pro doing. But there is the ability to interact with some of our members in there, and you can jump on our free Discord and you can actually then DM, guys like Shane or myself directly, and ask us any questions. You can always do that on our social channels as well. But yeah, if you do have any curiosities there, hop into our free Discord. We are doing some Q&As for free people that are in the free section that include some membership giveaways, and also there is going to be the ability to view our masterclass through the free section, which teaches our philosophies on how to win over the long term. So if you guys are interested in getting more involved, but aren't quite ready to dive into the community itself in the paid version, jump into our free Discord server and have a chat with some of our guys. That's a great way to do it. And if you are looking to buy, obviously use the promo code there, Behind the Lines.
Wow, holy crap! You're giving away some of the masterclass for free? That's nuts. That's insane. Yeah. Why didn't I wish I had that when I joined?
Well, no, you joined. You had the whole
thing. I did join, but I wish I had it before I joined, and I could have gone and taken in some of that. That's amazing that you guys are offering the masterclass, or at least some of the masterclass, for free. For anybody out there that is like, oh yeah, well, what is it? Something to just pull you deep? No, the masterclass is I would argue one of the most valuable parts of In Play Live, and so. If you're giving that away for free, I mean that is unbelievable.
It's not as simple as just that. It's not as simple as just that. But like, for example, if you attend one of our Q&As, you're going to have a window to watch some of it. Essentially, is what's going to occur after it. So
they get
more
the Q&A.
Details on that.
They get the Q&A and they get the masterclass, because the Q&A I'm sure will be
but wait,
full of value as well. No, it's kind of crazy though. It's amazing. So somebody gets to come on. They get to pick your brain, right? Yeah. Ask you questions, and then on top of that, they get access to the masterclass.
Potentially, yes.
That's amazing, incredible. What a deal! What a deal! Wow, that's exciting for me to even kind of learn about. And yeah, as you mentioned too, in the free Discord, you can message me, you can message Pace, anybody else in the community. Incredible stuff. All right, buddy. Good chatting with you as always. And till next week, keep eating those bucks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.